our PAFA's Curator of Contemporary Art, Jodi Throckmorton, and our special guest, Director of Fowler Museum at UCLA, Marla Berns, and Senior Curator at the San Jose Museum of Art, Lauren Dickens. Thank you all for being here and welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Oh, and there's Rina Banerjee. I see her. Thank you, Abby, for putting this all together and all the work that you do for these Zoom events. We really appreciate it and getting us all organized. So yes, welcome everyone. Welcome honored guest Rina Banerjee. Thank you for being here tonight. It's really great to see so many familiar faces from all over the country. So thank you for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead, well, I'll wait a minute to share my screen, and thanks to the co-curator of Make Me a Summary of the World, Rina Banerjee's retrospective, Lauren Dickens, for joining us tonight, as well as Marla Berns from the Fowler Museum. So thank you two for doing this with me. As many of you may know, the Rina Banerjee exhibition that started at PAFA in fall 2018 has been on tour, and it will continue on tour through winter 2021 actually, so a 3-year tour. So right now it's at the Fowler Museum. Regrettably, we can't see the beautiful show that Marla put together there. But after the Fowler, it will be at the Frist in Nashville. Thanks to Mark, I see Mark there. And then it will go to the Nasher at Duke University in the early winter of 2021. So there's still a lot of opportunities for us to see this work in person. And the Fowler has put together a lot of really wonderful online material. And I think Abby has that link that she'll share in the chat. Video walkthroughs, install images, other videos from other contributors that are really wonderful way to engage with the show at the Fowler. And I also want to mention that the San Jose Museum is doing a talk on this coming Thursday at 3:30 Eastern and 12:30 Pacific time, I believe, with Rich Carson, their Director of Design and Operation. Rich had a hand in really every part of this project and the installation and putting the design together for the show, working really closely with Rina and Lauren at San Jose. So it'll be a great behind the scenes talk of how this all came together. So please join them, and you can register through San Jose's website. And I think Abby's also going to give you a link for that. So tonight we'll be discussing the ways in which disease, infection, medicine, and pandemic are present in Rina's work. Her work is about many, many things. One of the things is if you stand in front of it and you look at her work, it can be quite overwhelming in the massive amount of things and topics that she covers. But one theme that comes up again and again is the idea of global movement. Whether that be of materials. She gathers materials from all over the world for her sculptures. People, in the way she thinks about migration and immigration through her own personal experience. Language, the way her very long titles, which I don't think we're going to get much into today, play with the English language and the way that it's become, the way it dominates the world and has moved throughout the world. And also disease, which this pandemic has I guess this is a bit of a silver lining, has given us the opportunity to look a little bit more closely at in her work. And of course, with all of these things comes fear based on this movement and this fear of the other. So while we're collecting all these goods, there's also this fear of the unknown and what we don't understand. So this evening, I'll briefly discuss one of Rina's most important early works, a piece called Infectious Migration. Lauren's going to do a brief presentation on a few of Rina's works on paper. And then Marla will look at the title piece for the show, the work that titled the show, Make Me a Summary of the World, and her Captivity. And ideally we'll leave plenty of time for you all to ask questions and for us to discuss, to have we welcome discussion and questions. You can add them in the chat as we go through or wait to the end. And I'm going to share my screen with you. And yes, thank you again, members, for PAFA certainly, but I think for all three institutions, this is your support now more than ever means a great deal. So thank you. So the work that's really at the core of this discussion is a piece that Rina did 20 years ago. In fact, I went back to look at the date today, and it's almost exactly 20 years ago. It was up in the 2000 Whitney Biennial. And the piece is called, as I mentioned, Infectious Migrations. And the image that you're seeing here is it installed at the Whitney. And it's part of a larger series of work that Rina did called An Uncertain Bondage is Deserved When Threatening Transmission. So sadly, not much of this early work exists anymore. So as you'll see as we go around, Rina graciously agreed to recreate this work for the show in 2018, and it continues to be on the tour. And to give you a sense of what this is, because it may be difficult to tell in this image, the piece is it takes up about a 30-foot long wall, and it towers above the viewer, and it just spreads as it goes out. The figure-like stain on the wall and that tumbles onto the floor is made from architectural plans for the Center for Disease Prevention at Columbia University. So I'm going to show you I'm showing you a few details of these. So these are plans that detail the duct system. So thinking about air circulation in the Center for Disease Prevention at Columbia University. So I think now, at a moment when we're thinking a lot about disease prevention and these centers, this map and the fact that Rina's used it in her work, continues to use it in her work, in fact, till today, is a really interesting fact. And it's all because of chance and choice. She was walking in New York near Columbia University in 1999, around 1999, and stumbled across these blueprints and plans in a dumpster. And in Rina's wonderful way, she was able to take these plans and turn them into really the core of a whole body of work, because these architectural plans were the starting point for her for this infectious migration piece. So within these plans, you have ideas about contagion, containment, control, and that fear of exposure. So when she made the work in 2000, which you see a detail of on the left, she was thinking about the AIDS epidemic. So at the time, 1999, 2000, the AIDS epidemic was relatively contained in the United States, but it certainly wasn't contained in other parts of the world. So Rina started to think about this way that the US has of, if it's not happening within our borders or on our shore, we don't care about it. We're not paying attention to it. And she found that to be really horrible and wanted to draw attention to that idea of disease and global movement and spreading that infection. Which I have to say, as I was looking back on this work and thinking about it today, it sadly rings true with the way that our early reaction, or I guess the way we didn't react early on to this global pandemic that now is certainly crashing upon our shores. But also, she was also exploring her own personal experience as an immigrant to the United States at this time. So when Rina was 4, they moved from India to London. And then at the age of 11, she moved from London to Philadelphia, where she grew up and grew up here and in New York and has lived in New York for many, many, many years. But in the title of the work, Infectious Migrations, she likens her experience as an immigrant to the United States to the fear of disease coming to the United States. She felt feared and hated. It's a dark comparison from her own experience of immigrating to this country, the idea of migration liking to the spreading of disease. So this idea feels more ominous than ever to me. When we think about the racism experienced by Asian Americans, for example, or the way that our president has labeled the virus, the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus, this language really matters. And it certainly matters in the way Rina thinks about her titles. And you know, an epidemic is the perfect moment, as Rina put it the other day when we were having a conversation about this talk. It's a perfect moment to capitalize and heighten fear, to promote hate, to have the fear. As she said, you have to have the fear before you have the hate. So fear of things that come from other places and the fear of that unknown. One of the things about Rina's work is that it seems to accrue meaning in the different places that it's shown, but also throughout time, it changes meaning. So when we restaged the work at PAFA for the first time in fall of 2018, and that's the image on the right, we were certainly thinking about immigration and border walls and all the things that are still, frankly, present in our political moment, but perhaps less at the top at the moment. But we could have never imagined how the infection part of this work would have taken on so much meaning. But central to that, the central form to me is so evocative of a body. Maybe even the guts of this larger figure, the guts falling out of the body, especially in the Whitney piece. It seems like it's very visceral and bloody in what it's doing. And I'd always thought about these tubes as spreading and migrating, like the tubes that are around as in they're taking over the wall. They're spreading through the wall and taking over the space. But I have to say that just today, as I was going through this presentation, I started to look at it anew, because when you compare the two pieces from 2000 and then the one in 2020, it's almost like the figure in the middle is taking sustenance from those rubber tubes, in fact. And it looks like the new piece has grown fur and even grown wings, and even perhaps is taking life instead of giving life to the space around it. And I started to look, and we can ask Rina this after, but I also started to read masks into the way that into what the light bulbs are looking at. So, I mean, granted, this time can make us look at things in ways that perhaps aren't there, but something that I certainly thought about. But which really gets us back to these ideas of circulation and containment and control that are present in those architectural drawings from the beginning. And here's an image of the work at the Fowler Museum, which I know Marla is going to show some more installation shots as we go through, but so you can see how the pieces evolved at the different venues. And I know, Lauren, you are going to touch a bit more on the Center for Disease Prevention drawing. So I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Jodi. And I wanted to thank PAFA and Jodi for putting this together. It was actually a year ago this week that the show opened in San Jose. So we've been really thinking about how the context for the work is so different right now than it was a year ago, but how, as you say, these works continue to aggregate new meanings as they move. So I wanted to just look at very briefly, a couple of the works on paper, and really just draw out some of the themes that Jodi just touched upon in Infectious Migrations. And this is a piece called She is an Uncertain from 2007. And you can see that the background mylar is another one of these schematics from the Columbia Center for Disease Control. And I think to me, it's very touching that the schematic is for the air ducts. So the fear is around airborne contagion and the infection in our lungs. So it's something that would go into the body and really inhabit the body from the inside. Rina's work, the representations of her figures are full of effluviums entering the mouth, coming out of the mouth, excretions. It's all about digestions and foreign contagions going into the body. So that's something that I really see coming out in this work. And of course, the air ducts and this idea of the institutional practices around containment. I think the institutionalization of that is something that is very relevant right now. It really resonates, but also allegorizes the concerns around immigration and the fear of the other, infection, and those sorts of containment. In the drawings, this very rigid background is completely transgressed by the figure that is on top. It's a water-based acrylic figure which oozes and is messy and completely obliterates any order that the schematic proposes. And I think that is a real juxtaposition and a tension in the work about refuting the possibility of biological containment in the messiness of our bodies. And in particular, in Rina's work, that comes with the female body. So Jodi, if you could just go to the next one. This is called Sudden Dispossession paled her already pliant body, spawning new green hope in her air drying, and in a incorruptible haste, she was all a thing of the world, not a place. So one of those beautifully long poetic titles. And we see this kind of ghoulish figure with her legs spread. And Rina has talked to me about this piece in relation to childbirth, as sort of the extreme example of the messiness of the female body. You know, this figure she's haloed. There's a cutout of the earth. You can't, it's very small here, but there's a cutout of the earth that's pasted into her belly, or, you know, her womb area there. And then she's splattered with blood after this sudden dispossession. So if we're thinking about kind of quarantines, fear of the uncontrollable, you know, women have been separated or quarantined during childbirth, even menstruation throughout the world and throughout history. So kind of another parallel theme running through the work is fear of the other, but and also fear of women. We'll go to the next one. This is called Human Traffic from 2015. And this is a piece that we weren't able to have in the exhibition, but is in the book. And very pointedly, human traffic, you know, the piece is about migration, global movements of people, but it also really raises questions about the definition of the human as a category. In this work, there are a lot of hybridized figures. Some of the figures are part plant. They have, you know, there's one here that appears to be sprouting a flower hand. Another one maybe is part animal, has antlers coming out of its head. There's kind of an ostrich-ish figure up in the corner. There's a definite fluidity between the figures and the rendition of the landscape. So ideas between representation or clearly defined figures and abstraction are, again, really fluid. So in denying, the strategy of denying the inability to say either or, so to refuse any sort of clear definition, it can apply to the parameters of, you know, gender and ethnicity, but it really speaks to this dominant theme of interconnectedness that we're talking about, and the inability in Rina's work to separate any one part from any other part, or to very clearly define the confines of a figure, be it from the environment, in terms of identity, in terms of separation from the other, which is something that always comes up, particularly in talking about biology. And I keep thinking about kind of the moment we're in now with COVID and trying to define what is a symptom of COVID. How can we pinpoint the confines of what this virus is, and how important it is to be able to lay out those barriers, and how in many ways Rina's work is really transgressing all of that. So that was just a quick touching on a couple of the works on paper, and then I'll hand it over to Marla.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to join these two wonderful curators of Make Me a Summary of the World. And as Jodi said, this exhibition is currently not on view at the Fowler, but installed in our galleries. And I wanted to speak to Make Me a Summary of the World, which is the piece in the front of the space. It's the piece that welcomes you when you enter the gallery. Because for me, it's a really nice summary of a lot of the things that seem to concern Rina in making her work, many of which have already been mentioned by both Jodi and Lauren, but having to do with migration and travel, with networks of global trade, which have gone on for centuries. There's nothing really new. And of course, her references to the unease and even the fear that seems to permeate and complicate the open boundaries and the fluidity of movement that we know are at the basis of trade and travel, and as was just mentioned, the interconnectedness of the world today. And I'm going, can I get the next slide, Jodi? This is a bit of a tighter view because I think in Make Me a Summary of the World, every single thing that you see that constitutes this complicated assemblage has specific meaning, is a reference either to a place of travel. Rina sees us as a kind of tour guide, taking us to Asia via the parasols, to Africa via the rhinoceros, to Victorian England through the glass chandelier parts, and to many other places that are represented in the materials of her work, including, as you see on the slide to the right, the cowrie shells that make up the figure that's holding the parasol, which was at one point in time a major global currency that traveled from Asia to Africa and around the world. So the work is taking us on a journey. It's reminding us of the things that we bring back when we travel. Those of us who are able to take journeys, to fly away, bring these things back as souvenirs. Souvenir, the French word for memory, because in fact, these objects help us remember the highlights, the tragedies, the problems of travel. And they're so important to us for that work that they do. And for me, there's a kind of sadness in seeing them and thinking about travel at a moment where we can't go anywhere, where the idea of actually getting on a plane, going to Africa, even going to San Francisco is fear. It brings fear to us, where in the past it brought us so much pleasure just to contemplate the possibility of going somewhere new. So I think that in some ways, the freedom of travel is the same freedom that has seeded the pandemic, as Jodi said, that the fact that people have been able to move has made that virus has moved around the world in the same way that we have traveled the world. And the interesting thing I think about this too is also what was said earlier, I think by Jodi, that immigration and migration and references to people who have invaded our shores and bringing with them disease is really brought into sharp focus by COVID-19, with, as Jodi also said, and as our administration claims that it came to us from China. So there you demonize the immigrant who's brought these things to our shores. The other thing that I find so remarkable about Rina's work and how she talks about this piece is that while it's all about travel and a memory of taking a journey, almost everything that you see here could be sourced by the internet. So there's a way in which real travel is supplanted by virtual travel, and the travel that's via your fingertips, clicking on the internet and buying the thing that you need. And it speaks to me about how we now, in place of having a lecture in person or spending time with a friend, having a drink, we're sort of destined, doomed, if you will, to encounter each other virtually. We're Zooming to maintain connections. We're doing everything we can, but everything we do has that distance of the computer, of the digital. And can I have the next slide, Jodi? But I wanted to finish this by going back to the majestic nature of Rina's work. And I use this particular installation shot because it is so fabulously full of color and materials and a sense of play, as well as the kind of bits of danger that lurk in projecting tusks and spears that you see on Make Me a Summary of the World. And the sadness I felt yesterday, I was actually at the Fowler yesterday for the first time in 5 weeks. And I went in to see the show and I thought how sad it is that you can't see this show, that it's its run was so terribly cut short by the COVID-19, and how many losses we're facing right now because of what we're going through. But it uplifted me, Rina, to see it and to be enthralled again by your wonderful pieces. And now I want to talk a little bit about Her Captivity, which is right behind. And I can use the next slide, please. So this piece, called Her Captivity, was made in 2011. And it's a fabulous piece that at the heart of it is really dealing with the colonial experience in India. And of course, as you heard, Rina's own life trajectory of having been born in India, living for a time in England, and then most of her life in the United States. And the equivalence that she draws in this work between colonization and captivity, which is something that's often, those two things are often put together. But even if migration sets her free, removes her from that situation, she never really can escape it, because the legacy of that domination lives with her, lives in her. These unequal relationships remain, even though we're so many years away from the end of the British Raj in a place like India or elsewhere in the world. And at the center of this work is this fabulous Victorian birdcage with its doors flung open for whatever was in it to have escaped. So they have, the birds that were once there have flown free. And I think the kind of maybe unintended metaphor that we can think about today is that indeed we are captive in our own homes. Their doors are open, we can open the windows, but we really aren't free. We can't escape because we're afraid. We know that, in a sense, this invisible contagion has actually colonized our lives. It is not letting us be free to do the things we want to do. And that, of course, is, referred to directly by this idea of the birds flying free. And can I have the next slide? The idea that the birds may be gone, but their most beautiful plumage remains. Can you actually go back to the one I just left? I wanted to say about this work that's so interesting is that the structure of it is based on that fabulous bird cage and also this Anglo-Indian table at the bottom, or pedestal at the bottom. But everything else is in front of it. It's outside of it. It's away from that sense of captivity that the colonial era represents, and that is the title of the work. And what you're seeing at the bottom is this rim of gourds and plumage of birds and desiccated grapevines, and all of them live outside because they are what Rina likes to call, which I love, nature's remains. There once were birds who had those feathers. There once were vines that carried those gourds. There once were grapes that made that grapevine filled with fruit and the possibility of wine. So they had a life, but the life is altered, it's transformed. Can I have the next one? Thank you. And again, this close-up where you can see the intricacy of that plumage and the brilliant color of the birds once alive, and the seashells that once held sea creatures. So it's a kind of ode to life at the same time as it's a memory of captivity and how sometimes we cannot do what we'd like to do, how we are not always free. And then the last slide of this piece. This is one of my favorite things about Rina's toolbox of materials, is these little Charlotte doll heads. And if you don't know about Charlotte dolls, they were very popular in the Victorian era. Evidently in Germany, little girls used them as bath toys, I think before they had little rubber duckies. And then in American folklore, you have the story of frozen Charlotte, of Charlotte riding in a sleigh to a party, forgetting to wear her wrap and freezing to death. So these beautiful little porcelain dolls, which without what Rina has done to transform these, are white and pink, are all about death, are all about the danger that lurks in childhood if you aren't careful. And in these little doll heads, Rina has made them Indian children, made them Oriental, if you will. They've got bindi marks, they've got turbans, they've bejeweled the way you might see someone walking on the street. And so there's an empowering nature of taking them and making them Indian, and in fact, at the same time, making them a hybrid between the little white porcelain doll, American doll they were, and now the Indian doll that they've become. So it's a kind of reclamation of cultural identity associated with India. And of course, it's all about, again, this idea of migration and dispersal and how people can travel around the world. And as I was thinking about this and preparing it and thinking about her captivity and freedom, it made me, of course, remember and think about Maya Angelou. And of course, her famous book and autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, that she wrote in 1969. And I just wanted to read, as by way of an ending, one stanza from a poem that she wrote in 1983 called Caged Bird. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. It seems such a wonderful way to think about our own state of being and Rina's wonderful work. So thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you for ending us in that way. That was really, really great. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you all and get back to the group. Does anyone have any questions or comments before I dive in and asking some of my own? Or I lost Rina. I also feel like.
See, let me unmute.
There you are. If you want to say something.
Rina.
Hello. So everyone sees me and they hear me.
Yes.
We
Good.
see you.
It was wonderful to hear all the different comments and stories and narratives that went along with the work. I don't know how much more I can add, but it made me think about all those separate things is very much also part of what we're experiencing, have always experienced and will continue to experience. So the only other thing I realize having to be sheltered in is this sense of time that escapes us, that makes us feel not real and not alive even. So much of our movement and our ability to see other people move between us, and even the fears of things happening once you leave your shelter are so much part of feeling alive and being aware of time. And I can't say I have to feel like I have to keep looking at the clock and out my window to realize that time has passed. It has been, I don't know, 40 days or so. So that this idea of time and even souvenirs, how souvenirs become somewhat dead in its movement from place to place. And the souvenir itself is something that was captured to capture in its voice an authenticity of place that gets narrated by the owner, which is one thing I thought of. The other thing I thought of, which was exciting to think about, is the invisibility of Corona. Now, we're so busy trying to cover ourselves, which, you know, we question how other people before Corona would cover themselves as wrong, as hyper modesty. And yet now when I go to Central Park, I see people cover, and I'm hoping there's no men there. It's usually guys who are really frustrated with being covered up. And women have all these like fashionable ways to express themselves and not be modest and still cover up at the same time, which is very exciting for me to see this kind of innovation to being captured, that it is itself a stimulus for realizing that you're alive. So that was really an important experience to have now, how human beings are so imaginative.
Well, and one of the questions that came up, and this in my mind, and this is for Rina and anyone really, Marla, Lauren, anyone that has thoughts, is this, I mean, we talk about how the individual materials in your work have so many different meanings, right? So one thing can mean something and can mean 10 different things in one piece, and then mean 10 other things in another sculpture that you're doing. So I started to look, looking at the work again through the lens of this pandemic and trying to think of those materials that speak to that. The test tubes, certainly. Test tubes and excuse me, probably I'm getting the wrong language, but like the beakers and things pop up quite a bit in the work. The red thread, of course, is like that bodily blood red going through. And I'm wondering, are there other materials that come to your mind that you're thinking of in that sort of biological disease kind of way?
Well, definitely the idea of disease probably predates science itself, and our connection to other things, how we are connected. And of course, women specifically experience that when they give birth. They carry a child, and that child, as I thought was interesting what Lauren was saying, one of the realization is how uncontrolled that whole experience is. It's an explosion, not only having the birth, but your whole life just explodes in front of your face without any control. And there's the sense of loss immediate to that, which is that child has its own identity that grows before you and can't be captured by you as your own, even though you had it for 9 months. And so disease has a very familiar kind of parallel way of becoming part of that narrative, because it's the corona, like anything else, I always see it as something that nature gave birth to. And what are we supposed to do with this if it's
And we
killing?
can't control it. It's an uncontrollable experience.
And it lives in our body to be born again on top of it. The experience of knowing that something is in this world that is like weather, comes and goes, that we will have a second wave, for example. Like today's sunny, but tomorrow it's going to be corona again. And so that whole unending death, that nature continues with or without us. And sometimes we cooperate whether we like to or not. And that the idea of seeking shelter that we use so much now, shelter in, is about that storm, which is nature's storm, how it creates these, kind of changes in our life that are global and have always been a global reach. We didn't have to really depend on commerce to make something global. Nature was always global. And so it really makes me think about how we don't want to accept that disease comes like storms throughout history and reinvents us. But very importantly, one thing is for sure, it makes us more connected, and it makes us rethink things in ways that are a part of our crisis, but allows us to mature, maturity is a kind of evolution that we don't keep tabs on. Are we more mature human beings today than before? And that happens with sharing information. And I think that's very exciting about art, you know, that you can make something you didn't understand and then you share it with yourself, that it's new information all of a sudden because you've matured. I mean, especially in a retrospective when I look back at the work. So that's very exciting for me to see.
And we've got a question. Kristen, if I can find you and unmute you. There you are.
Hi, I'm coming in from Michigan. I thought it was really, really interesting towards the end when you talked about the dolls. Not really so much of a question, but as a comment. Interestingly enough, I actually have a reproduction 19th century doll right now.
Wow.
Like, I actually have one of these just here, sitting here. And it really made me think about the experience of childhood mortality in the 19th century. Because you have these dolls and you, oh, children, and you think this beautiful thing, but how many women died in childbirth? How many children died of disease before they hit the age of 10? So that had like extra layers to it for me. And I just thought I'd throw that shout out for you. That was really cool.
And let me just add, I didn't say it, but when I was doing a little research on the Charlotte dolls, they were actually sold in little coffins because, you know, little frozen Charlotte died. So you would get your little naked Charlotte doll with its pretty little face in a coffin, which was chilling and kind of creepy, actually. So I just, you know, to your point, that's how they were distributed. And I think, Rina, I don't know if you agree with this, the heads are often all that remains. So when you don't have a reproduction like that, because the heads, I believe, are solid and the bodies are hollow because they were mold made, the heads survive and the bodies don't. So
sometimes these were stuffed with different things too. That was the other thing that really got me about this, is that they stuffed them with straw, fabric, and then I think of just how you assume the body in your artwork and how these are just stuffed with random things too as a woman. Just so cool.
And we've been getting a lot of chats, which is really great. Thank you all. One of the comments that was made is that it's so different to see the work in a stark white space rather than in the context of the permanent collection at PAFA. I'm not sure which one I appreciate more or which one spurs more conversation in my head. So thank you. And there's a lot of conversations about and then a thank you to Rina for putting language from Brittany Webb around the global and the natural re-disease. And a lot of people are seconding that. But that's been one of the special things for me with this tour, is that we did get to install the show in the permanent collection at PAFA, and thinking about the relationship, for example, between her Captivity, which you described so beautifully, Marla, and paintings like Penn's Treaty with the Indians, which show you know, the trade between the Lenape people and William Penn for the land that Philadelphia is on. And of course, one of the things that we think about is that the spreading of disease that happened when Europeans colonized the land that we're all on right now. And then seeing it in San Jose's space in the Fowler, and then going on to the Frist and the Nasher in sort of a white cube space where it can react to each other individually. And Marla, actually, I wonder if you want to talk about the work that you put in your permanent collection, actually, which is related.
we put a piece called When Signs of Origin Fade into our permanent collection gallery in a section that deals with tradition as innovation, that we always think that the contemporary is something special when in fact everything was once contemporary, even if it now is historical. And that piece deals with deep geologic history. I mean, I love Rina's explanation of continental drift and the fact that, you know, all of the continents were once one of, I think it was called what is it, Pangea or something?
Pangea, I think.
Pangea, yes. And then the fact that these continents that once were one have now separated and are surrounded by the cosmic turtle that holds the world up was just wonderful. And also because our exhibition is about global arts and local lives, it resonates so well, and it's beautiful in there.
Just jumping off that, Jodi mentioned how it was installed differently at each of the places. So when Signs of Origin Fade was installed at the San Jose Museum, there are confines of the wall, the pieces were in a different configuration than she has shown them elsewhere. So just, again, thinking about how the kind of world creation is different based on the land you're standing on, based on the perspective that you have, really conceptually resonant, and then it's really nice the way it materially works out in the pieces as well.
Yeah, one of the things I really like doing more of is to be able to make pieces that can expand and then come together and change shape around the site that it chooses to be in, or maybe even, the collection that it will show with, that a piece can be itself alive because of the variable sizes that it can take shape to. I think that's important.
Which is again about movement. Jodi, you mentioned kind of forms and how they change through the work. Rina, you talk about cilia sometimes, which is one of the elements that I really love. So that the hairs that are around the edge of a cell that are the organism for both locomotion and sensory organ, those are the same. So the relationship between the movement and the experience of the world around. I love how those are tied together in your work. And then the cilia's, it's hairs and fine feathers in the kind of works on paper. It's the threads. I'm sure 20 other things.
Yeah, I think like the simple biological cell was the model that we still represent as human beings. That where the cilia was in some sense both movement and touch. So to touch something, to be connected to something, somehow together became important in movement. So whether it's a cell that moves through space and can know without eyes where it's going and what it's seeing through the hairs, we do that too. Still, we continue to hold on to our hair, in a way to make this kind of sense of not only identity, but to see the world not through our eyes, but through touch. And I think that a lot of the sculpture I thought about having, the threads really came later. When I first started, I used the fine hairs of peacocks, because I started to learn that some feathers have hairs and some feathers didn't have hairs. There's this really big, complex vocabulary of different types of hairs. So one of the things I made into two compartments was things that are have volume and shape like containers, like the gourd, and things that are long and elongated that can get entangled or create puncture, like horns and rope. So it's really very simple shape ideas that I'm drawn to with this simple model of nature. So the dome has very much that kind of feeling of this volume versus this long thing that travels. Yeah, and I think that visibility has a lot to do with this feeling of fear, which obviously is a very important survival mechanism. But at any point, do we use fear to I have to say, like in genocide, to create a suicide of ourselves from too much fear. You know, where is this kind of balance that we, you know, always have to kind of grapple with and surrender to, where we realize that too much fear or inappropriate fear is a kind of cannibalism and self-killing.
We've got just a few more minutes left, so I just wanted to make sure if anyone has any last questions or thoughts that they want to share. A couple chats coming in. Thank you. Thank you all. I mean, I thought one of the things that maybe I'll ask at the end, or maybe just put it as a thought, is something that Marla said that was quite wonderful, is thinking about how real travel has been supplanted by virtual travel, or, you know, virtual connections, as we've been making this evening. And in a lot of ways, I've always thought about Rina's work as being a way to travel, you know, like the idea of making me a summary of the world is this wonderful idea that's an impossibility, but a wonderful, we make the attempt, you make the attempt to make a summary of the world. So thinking about how your work can be a catalyst for us all to travel while we're in our homes or in our localities and can't move to those farther away places.
I think that's wonderful, Jodi. I think that the reality is you can never make a summary of the world, because the world keeps changing and growing and becomes a bigger place, a different place than the one that you try to kind of describe in your vocabulary and your experience. So I think, you know, history keeps proving to us that the world is uncontainable and cannot be captured.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Rina. Thank you, Marla and Lauren and everyone for coming. It's lovely to see you all. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Rina.
And thank you, Jodi, for facilitating that wonderful
Yeah,
conversation.
thank you, Jodi.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great images.
Mhm.
And Rina, make sure you read your comments. You're getting great comments.
Preaching. I did want to quickly, before we say goodbye to everybody, I'm just going to drop a link for future PAFA programs. One of them that popped into mind when Rina was speaking, talking about covering, is actually our next PAFA Pours is going to be with Jodi Throckmorton and Dr. Brittany Webb, who's on this call, and they're going to be talking about the art of covering, the visuality of covering at this time, and looking at some artworks we have in the collection, but then also just discussing what this means socially and politically. So please check that out on the link below, or link in the chat. And thank you all for such lovely feedback and for being here. It's so good to see so many of you. Be safe and see you again.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh.
My daughter.
My favorite part. Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and say goodbye as you're on your way out, but love it.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Perfect.
Dropping
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I love that one with the face.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
that's an older panel piece above it.
That's an older panel. Let's see. This is new. I don't know if I can do this. That's a woman. There's the COVID thing. There's some masks.
Oh, yeah.
She's wearing her COVID. And as you can see, her roots are growing in. And people like that, they're like, my hair's a mess and I have to wear this mask.
That's called quarantine fashion.
I know. I saw this woman trying to jump out of her car and go to the butcher's where there's a line, and she had her robe on.
Oh.
It's pretty funny because people are trying to like pretend they don't exist I think if we had like an Android, we'd send the Android out and lead our, usual social life and go to all the openings and the art fair, but we'd stay home. And that way we wouldn't have to worry. Maybe that's our solution. I hope not.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a sci-fi nightmare, of course, but yeah. Yeah, I'm trying, we still have deadlines, work to do, these exhibitions in the fall. So I saw
That's
Mark
good.
was there for a little while. So our show retrospective is pushed into January.
No, I think
No,
it's
it's-
still,
We're installing in September and then it will come down in January.
I thought it was still July.
Can't be July.
No.
So it moved to September.
Yeah, moved to September for the
That's right.
install, and
'Cause
then it will end in January. in time
21st
for-
or something.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
so
Because
that's
of
a nicer.
Let's hope, knock on wood.